Hey, you. Welcome back to the channel. And guys, by the title of the video here, you can see that I'm posing a question: Is Bitcoin MYK more decentralized than Bitcoin? And this is can be a kind of confusing question because we tend to think of Bitcoin MYK as an extension of Bitcoin. Meaning if you buy more Bitcoin, you mine more Bitcoin. Uh, you that transfers to Bitcoin MYK value, which you get from that. The more you mine, the more you buy, the more Bitcoin MYK you get. So they're almost joined at the hip. But it got me thinking about the centralization and centralization as compared to these two systems, right? And I was reading up on this prominent economist, Rubini, and he spoke about Bitcoin. And then he tweeted this. He tweeted that decentralization in crypto is a myth. It is a system more centralized than North Korea. Miners are centralized, exchanges are centralized, developers are centralized, dictators. But I mostly focus on this particular part where it says miners are centralized. And I thought about mining in Bitcoin, and I thought about the whole idea of decentralization. And I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, in the idea of decentralization, what are the parameters? Because I agree that a system itself can be decentralized and have great security, right? Um, but we can also have a centralized system that has great security. And when he says in this tweet that miners are centralized, right? It got me to thinking, what would it take for me to be a miner? And I got on the idea of, I don't think I would want to be a miner. Um, you have to go out and buy heavy equipment. You have to do this expensive to mine the bitcoins, and it's not practical for some people. Some people don't know how to do it, right? Some people just don't have the expertise. Some people want to do it but aren't able to do it because they can't afford to do it, or what have you. But the problem with all that is it kind of condenses the miners into a which could potentially be a very small group of people. Uh, and in the broad idea of decentralization, wouldn't that kind of then uh, reduce decentralization, at least just in that area, right? If there's an area of centralization in the exchanges themselves that conduct most of the value of the cryptocurrency of Bitcoin, most of the trade volume of Bitcoin is handled on centralized exchange. If the developers are themselves centralized, right? Meaning the people who develop this system, and then down to the miners, um, then how do we break this cycle, right? Because then what we do end up with a form of decentralized technology, meaning everybody comes in and they have a decentralized use of this technology. I guess the easiest way to put it is a comment that was made by Dr. Craig Wright, and I'm pretty sure most of you know who he is because a lot of people in the cryptocurrency don't tend to like him very much. But whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not, what is clear is that when he launched Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, it was a top 10 coin for a long, long time, and it's still somewhere around that mark, worth billions of dollars. And statements that he was making was to the effect of that Bitcoin was never meant to be mined at home. It was meant to be mined by these large data centers. And if that's true, if Bitcoin is meant to be mined just by large data centers, with most of them being mined probably in China, then that doesn't feel like real decentralization to me, right? That feels like a form of it, but it doesn't seem to touch on all the parameters of decentralization that are important to me. And so that's kind of concerning to me. I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts about that as well. But it got me thinking, well, where does Bitcoin NYK fit into this our project? Obviously, Bitcoin NYK was meant to be this arm of Bitcoin, right? To make Bitcoin work a little bit better, a little bit more efficient, alongside with it offering this other solution. Um, However, what I find about Bitcoin NYK that seemingly works a lot better, I think, for us is one is that anybody can basically run Bitcoin NYK, be what we call a network supplier, which is kind of similar to mining and block producers and things like that in our ecosystem. And it's basically they collect and distribute out these tokens along the network. Now, they can do this. Anybody can do this that can run a traditional website. You can use a WordPress plugin. You can set up pretty much any type of website that ties back to the blockchain, links back to the blockchain. And it's pretty much democratizing that. Then there's an election where people are voted on to how many tokens they receive throughout the course of this system. Now, that feels a lot more like democracy and decentralization to me. And I say that because anybody can do this. It's very cheap to do it. Anybody can jump in and start doing it. And I won't go into all the details of it. We do that on other videos. But from the setup of it, just by making it easy for anybody imaginable to be able to pretty much distribute this token and help to create the value of this token in comparison to what we get with the proof of work algorithm, it makes me, want to say that Bitcoin NYK is a great deal more decentralized, if not in technicality, definitely in the spirit of it. Um, Now, that said, we need proof of work, right? And so I can't demonize it because it's necessary for Bitcoin NYK to function. It's necessary for every blockchain to function to some degree. So we need the proof of work algorithm. But it just makes me beg the question, if I'm looking for a more fairer, more decentralized model, an idea, it would have to be something like what Bitcoin NYK does, which allows a great deal more democracy, literally, right? And we just can't get that with Bitcoin, right? We can't get we can't get rid of mining monopolies that's controlling most of the mining, right? We can't seemingly get rid of centralized exchange. We can't get rid of the centralization of the developers like the economist here, Rubini, speaks about. And these are very, very difficult workarounds, it seems. But it's just a question that came to mind in looking at the connection between Bitcoin and Bitcoin NYK. But guys, that's all I want to say in this video. Would love to hear your opinions. If you like content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and until next time, take care.